Hi screen printers, this is Colin from Ryonet. Today we're going to go over some basics on how to create a white base in Adobe Illustrator. I'm following on the heels of what Luke had done a little while ago in terms of how to do basic color separations. So I'm taking it up a notch. I have a 3-color design here that you can see in Illustrator. We have a cream shade, 2 shades of blue, and then we'll be creating our base white out of it. I deliberately picked a design that has some bigger open areas, spot colors, and then also some very fine detail areas that could cause headache or havoc for those of us who are new to creating a base white. Areas that would go, I'm going to lose my detail, or how do I do little nuancy things? So what I want to do first is I want to go over my workspace and what you're going to see me use, the tools I'm going to use within Illustrator, and I'm going to walk through and talk about everything that I'm doing during this video. So one of the first things you'll notice is that I have a bunch of these little windows open. I have my swatches over here. This has all my spot colors in it. You can tell that these are spot colors because they have this little dot right here. And if I double click it, we'll go up here and we can see that the color type says spot color. Down here in the color mode, actually doesn't really matter what you have in here for the color creation type. What really matters here is whether or not it's a spot color or whether or not it's a process color. If it's a process color, the Illustrator or the vector program we're in will automatically break it out into the cyan, magenta, yellow, and black shades that make up that color. So we're going with spot colors. When we go to separations, Illustrator is going to recognize that these are spot colors, and you'll see that in our print separation dialog towards the end. Over here, I have layers. There's artboards that shows this white background that we have here. This white page is our artboard, and this layers is all the things that I have here that I may not need at the moment. Going to layer 1, you can see that I have the original design, which was a Brooklyn Bridge piece of art that we picked up off of Adobe stock. I went ahead and made adjustments. Vancouver is on the other side of Portland, so we have all kinds of bridges going over the rivers that we have around here, and bridges are kind of a thing in Portland. So we have layers. We can go into different areas. I already have set up area to take my colors into. You can see that I was messing around and I already have a white base created, but I'm going to go ahead and delete all of that because we're going to go through and work on creating that as we go. I have a few windows still open. I have strokes still open because we're going to show what's going on when we do our trapping and choking and adding strokes where needed. So that window will still be open. Pathfinder I will be using here. This is all part of the flyout window for transform, where you can make changes, align, where you can center something or get it all to align to a specific point. I tend to use the Pathfinder tool, and then we might use transparency to show some overlapping of certain products, or to see how things stack on top of each other a little easier. So other than that, the other tools that I'll be using is going to be a lot of keyboard shortcuts. Paste in front, paste in back, copy, copy paste. There's going to be a lot of that. Control C, Control V, Control Z to undo. That's right over here. So the last thing that you did will always show up here as an undo. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to use select to pick some colors, same, and then we'll go over that as we get there. I want to talk about, I work in RGB almost exclusively. RGB is a slightly smaller file size. With what we do in textile screen printing, there's almost never a need to use CMYK unless you're trying to do severe color reduction in using the CMYK colors to recreate a design. But doing CMYK separations out of Illustrator, it's not meant for screen printing, for textile screen printing. It's meant for printing on paper, dot gain, and a lot of other things, which we can go over in future videos. This is just talking about my working space and doing the separations. But I work in RGB. The only reason for me to convert to a CMYK would be to use separations preview, but since I know that there's no CMYK colors in this, I don't need to use it. And that's been a lot of my habits since I started working in art and separations back in around 2000. So I've been doing this for about 20 years. Shh, I'm not that old. So that's what we have here. Another thing I wanted to mention, having a large monitor for your workspace is incredibly helpful. You can see that I have a lot of open space to play with, and I still have my windows up and available, which makes pinging around and bouncing from tool to tool really nice. Really makes things really simple. Another thing is as we click onto things, you can see that this bar up here shows up with a lot of shortcuts. The color, whether there's a stroke, it's very quick glance information. I don't remember the shortcut to bring that up, but it's one of those tools that I always encourage people to have up there, especially if you have something in a piece of art that was sent to you by a customer and you don't know what it is. If you click it and it's a PNG or a JPEG, it'll show up over here that it's a raster image. Like, let me quickly make a box, edit, where is it? Object, rasterize. And we're just going to click OK because we don't care that, but that's what it is. It'll show up over here embedded. I let it go as a grayscale, 300 pixels per inch, approximately DPI. It gives you lots of ways to manipulate, tweak it, if you need to auto trace it, that sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. The next thing that I want to go over, that's my working space. I want to go over actually going in and diagnosing a design that you'll have so that you can better have a greater idea of how to approach it and the things to dive into and break down on. So as I zoom in here, one of the things that you'll notice is that you can see all the little individual pieces that are here as I hover over them. And if I click it, you can see where they're grouped, which is great because I can see, oh, this piece here isn't grouped. That's just part of all of this. Here's my cream, here's my text. I still have my text editable. I wanted to show you some quick shortcuts to bring that back into where you need it to be for separations as outlines. So what I'm going to talk about here is how to go through and recognize all the little pieces that we have in our design, how to go about deciding what to do for creation of a base white. Because when it comes to separating colors, it's really, really straightforward. It's almost a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. Unless you have something strange clicked and turned on, it really will be straightforward what you see here for color. If I went ahead and hit print on my colors and I picked my blue, my darker blue, and my cream, they'll come out exactly as we see them. But if I'm going to try and make this into a base white, there's some things that I need to tweak. There's things that I need to play with. So one of those things that I want to talk about is this section right here. You know, how we have things overlapping, but this section right here, I'm going to zoom in. So these little pieces in here, these are really, really, really tiny. So I'm going to zoom out really quick. I'm going to lock my black background here. On a Mac, that's Command 2. On a PC, that's Alt 2. And I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to make a little box. I'm going to make this, I believe it's 0.18 by 0.18 is, so I'm going to pull out my calculator here and divide 16 by 1 or 1 by 16 to get what a 1/16 of an inch is. And I forgot what it is as a decimal. 1 divided by 16 equals 0.0625. So that was actually a 1/4 inch there. So if I delete this, 0.0625. So that is a 1/16 of an inch, that box right there. So you can see that these little pieces that we have in here are actually really, really darn tiny. So I wanted to do that to give you a sense of scale so you can see how tiny these little things really are. And as a result, how much of a problem they can cause when you're trying to create a base white separation. So another thing I wanted to point out, this was clip art, which means not all of these pieces are going to be perfect. I did fix some of what the clip art gave us, but I left this piece here to show a really easy way to fix where this line is that I have here. I'm going to zoom. Oh, I have my zoom set to go to the center of my selection. not always the easiest when it comes to creating videos. So with this little line here, if we give it a stroke, let's give it a quick stroke. Color window go away, and then let's make that 0.025. So you can see that where that line segment is, it's actually creating a stroke, which we don't want. So I'm going to remove that, and then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hit this Unite, or I can also call it Merge. Depending on the vector program you're in, it'll have a different name. So I'm going to click that, and it's going to pull everything back together. So now those are all individual pieces. One of the things that I want to talk to you about is with this little piece, when I go through and I do my breakdown for doing colors, so that I can take this and then create my base white with it. I like to do something where I knock out everything. I do use the divide feature. But then going back in and selecting everything can become very tedious. So we try and select the same color. If you have all these little bit individual pieces that you're trying to grab, we need a better way to go about and select them. So I will use a totally different color. So I'll pick that one. And that's because I can go back through afterwards and we'll go through this and select same fill color, and boom, there it is. So the other, so that's pretty much everything that we just need to touch on for this before I go in and work on the next step. I do want to touch on registration marks and expanding on what Luke did for talking about placement and creation and why they're there. In my many years in the industry, I have learned from having many printers beyond press, many people in the darkroom, their habits and what they observe and what they don't observe. I have found that creating information redundancy is incredibly beneficial to your workflow. So in this case, while we may have an information packet that goes along with the films, we may have a digital information packet that goes along the films based on how your shop is set up and run. Having this on the individual film, which is then on the screens, which can be read by the printer, becomes very important information so that they can see things at a glance, because you can get moving around and forget. And then if you're holding the tool that you need to look, that you're working with at that moment, it has the information on there. So in this case, the design name is Hawthorne Bridge. I originally put this together back in June, so that's why the 6 is there. If you wanted to get more detailed, you can even put the date of creation of the films. So if in case, just in case, you make an adjustment to a film, you have a timestamp as to when the newest films were created. And again, this is a redundancy check. This is making sure that there's no chance to make a mistake, because I've been in places where mistakes have been made because people just didn't pay attention or they didn't know. So if all the information is there at their fingertips, it's very difficult to make a mistake. Sometimes, you know, we don't exactly know where the design is going. Sometimes there's special placement. Let's say you have a scoop neck or a V or a tank top. You're combining that with t-shirts, whatever it is. You put that information here so that your printers know and everybody knows where this design is going on the garment. There's no question about where that physical location is going to be. Your customer knows, your printers know, it's all followed. Again, this is because somewhere along the line, money was paid out to replace garments because the design was put in the wrong location. Information redundancy, everyone being on the same page, really important. And then over here, I'll put in my mesh counts, my colors. If you're as a separator, know the process really well, you can even call out everything that needs to be in here, like white base, 157 mesh, hydro, thin thread, makes printing your base white so nice and so easy. Your printers will love you if you have it. Dark blue on a 230 mesh, light blue on a 230 mesh, cream on a 230 mesh. This is if you wanted to print wet on wet, 230 to 305 mesh. I like 230s, especially thin thread 230s. You get a very nice clean thin deposit, a very soft print, but still gives you enough ink lay down for the ink and the print to look bright. So that's why I have all this information in here. It may be more than what you are doing. As for registration marks, how you make them is not as important for this tutorial. There are dozens of ways to create a registration mark. What you most want to see is something that you can resolve on screen, that is easy for you to make a lineup to, and that is easy for you to see if your registration is out at a glance. I like the 1 point line weight thickness, because if you're off a little bit on 1 point, you see it really quickly and really easily. And you know that you have a smaller adjustment to make. If you use a 2 or a 3 point line, it's not as obvious when you're out of register. As a seasoned printer, you will see that edge being off, but it also doesn't give you that same sense of urgency to go back and get it into register. If you see a large area, a large surface area being close enough to reg, if you have a very narrow area that's off, you have an internal sense of urgency to get that back into register. So from there, all right, let's talk about actually going through and separating, knocking things out, prepping our colors for becoming a base white. So I'm going to unlock my base look, my black background here, which is Command Option 2 on a Mac. I'm going to select it, I'm going to copy that, turn off my working layer, go into my colors and separation layer. I'm going Command F, Control F on a PC, and it's a paste in front. So I did copy and I'm doing paste in front. So if I do this, everything is in the exact same spot. So from here, I'm going to lock this again. I'm going to make a selection of my design. And what I'm going to do now is if I have any strokes in here, or if I have text that can be edited, which all my text can be edited, I need to convert it all to a solid fill. I don't want to deal with any of that. There will be times when you want to deal with that, like doing text outlines and stuff like that, things where you need to be able to manipulate chokes in multiple ways and features, which can be another video. But for this one, we're going to do it the simple way. Object, expand. There we go. Object and fill. Okay. And now my text, you watch it shift. Now my text is all outlined. There's no more strokes or text that's editable or anything like that. The other thing to look at is here we have things that are under, little pieces that are overlapping. For going in and creating your base white, you want to make this easier on yourself. So here's where I go to make this easier. And for this process, there's no right or wrong way, as long as you can repeat what you're doing and you know why you're doing what you're doing, so that you can go back and make adjustments if you see something that's not quite right. You understand your methodology, your own way of doing things. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to, if my mouse will work, there we go. I'm going to click divide. We're going to watch, there it goes, applying divide filter. And now we can see that all these little pieces in here, click ungroup, they're all individual pieces. But that's okay, because now we're going to use a nice little shortcut. We're going to go up under here, select, same fill color. So now I have every little piece of that cream shade, and I'm going to click unite. Boom, all done. Going to go over here to the light blue, select same fill color, and unite. Boom. Do the same thing with the other color, select same, boom. All right, and now over here, select same fill color, boom. And that right there is why I changed that color, so that I could select that specifically, keep it separate from the other dark blue, so that when I went to grab it again, now I can change it back to the dark blue. That's simple. So that way, that section is all together by itself. We have one other color in here, the black. Select same fill color, and I'm going to delete this because I don't need black. We're going to end up printing on a black t-shirt, and removed. So if I undo this, or I unlock the background, and I'm just going to switch it to an outline for ease, you can see that it's now literally just these three colors. Nothing overlaps, things butt up against each other, but that's it. Switch this back. So now from here, we are going, this is essentially done for our colors. We'll end up adding a stroke to this section after we've created the white base, so you can see it as a layered process. So now that this is done, I'm going to select this, going to Command C, copy, go up to my base white, and again, I'm going to paste in front, Command F, so again, right there on top. So now, I'm going to delete this just so that we have that done. I'm going to select all of this, but I'm going to deselect, there we go, deselect that. Apparently it's being finicky today. And we are going to turn this into a different base white, a different white that I have on here. Specifically, I made this green so it's visible, and click. Oh, notice something weird here? We've got elements in here that came from when we did our divide, and they're zero fill, zero stroke elements. So there's an easy way to do this. I'm going to create over here on my fill and my stroke, zero fill, zero stroke, select same fill and stroke, and I'm just gonna, why is it doing that? Select same fill and stroke, grab it by the edge. All right, so you can see that there's a lot of information there. And I'm just going to hit delete. So whenever you have, when you do a divide, whenever you have an empty space, it fills it with a mathematical emptiness, zero fill, zero stroke, because it recognizes that there was an empty space there trapped within your vector design, your vector portion. It's nice because now you can, take that empty space and create a fill color to it instead of trying to, create a fill circle or something like that. But because you don't see it, it's easy to forget about it. And I deliberately forgot about it for the purpose of this video and creating the base white so that you would see that, oh, hey, and it stands out more. So now we're back here. We have all of this. I'm going to deselect that and I'm going to turn it green. So that in essence is your base white. It is a duplicate of your colors. The drawback to doing this is that now your colors are literally stacked right on top of each other. It's like taking a Lego and putting another Lego right on top of it. When you view it on the side, you can see the edge of your base white. We don't really want that as screen printers. We want that color to be just a little over so that that color can drop and cover up the side of that white. It makes the design look more complete. Also can give you a little bit of wiggle room when you're doing registration, left to right, up and down. But overall, it's an aesthetic reason. So to do that, we're going to add a stroke to the black. Or sorry, we're going to add a black stroke or a non-color printing stroke to this. So I'm going to go back in here again, deselect that. I'm going to group this. So that's Command G to group it so that I can easily grab that again. These pieces, not all these little pieces here have merged. So let's see. There we go. So what I did there was there's these little pieces here where the colors wouldn't touched. And since they're individual colors, if we wouldn't put a stroke on them right now, that's what's going to happen. You're going to end up having a choppy line there. So if we go and remove that, go back here, and we just use the unite function to make that underbase white a solid piece, now it all goes away. So now we can come back in here, give it a non-printing stroke, and now we have our choke, we have our trap. That Illustrator defaults to a 1 point, by the way. So it looks fairly thick in here, and it is. It's a lot to take away. One of the things we wanted to point out was if you have design elements going to a point, something like this right here can happen. So, or you have these points going way inside of where your design is, and that's not good. We need to figure out a way to take care of that. So one of the ways to take care of that is to either reduce your trap. If I go from 1 point to half a point, that becomes a lot smaller. It's still a little bit of a notch. But again, this is also 3/8 of an inch to 1/2. These points are really small. So this is a judgment call on your part as to whether or not you want to let this go or choose the next method that I'm going to show you. So we also have over here on corners, we can go to a rounded corner and you can see how all my points are now a little round. This is a judgment call on your part as to whether or not you think it's a good thing to do and it works for the design. So you can see here in the text goes from sharp to a little round, and you can see down here where we're in the Portland Bridge, it goes from sharp to round. You can also deselect, ungroup this and go in and select certain areas and manipulate that. That again is your choice for how deep you want to get into this and what it is that you need within your separation. For the purpose of this, I'm not going to make that decision for you. I'm just going to show you everything that you can do. So the next part that I wanted to point out is while we have, our base white with our trap here, we have this section here that is so tiny that it can be difficult to do what we need to do. So I'm going to turn this base green. I'm going to turn on the background, the color, so you can see it up against the color. So we can see, if I was to turn that off and on, you can see how the green visually gets smaller against the background. So that's its choke, that's its how it's being taken away, but nothing's happening yet with this color here. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna leave it as it is, turn off that layer, I'm gonna go back here, and I'm going to give it a blue stroke, but I'm going to give it a 0.5 point blue stroke, which matches, oh, there's a little stray duty, little tiny blip, 0.5 point that matches the 0.5 point that we did on the base white. So now I'm going to turn this on, and you can see that overlap now for the color that's in the blue to overlap the white. And remember, this is a very, very tiny area. As we get in here, from here to here is a 1/16 of an inch. Yeah, tiny, that's why I picked this. So you can see why that's of benefit to do it the way that we did it. If we did it the other way, it's going to create havoc. So I'm gonna zoom out. That is our base white. Turn that on, you can see a little bit of a vibration to the eye with the colors I picked, but you can see that the thinner areas are definitely choked. They're definitely, we've pulled back some of that detail. And then with this small area in here, the smaller it gets, the more you will need to make that decision to stroke the top color or choke the underbase. And sometimes it's a split. Sometimes I'll choke the base 0.25 and I'll expand on the top 0.25 because I tend to run with a 0.5 point choke. What your decision is up to you and based on your shop's abilities and what you know that you can hold on press and what your printer can actually achieve from a detail point of view. So that is, essentially done. There's not a whole lot more to go in and try and diagnose. So that's my base white. Those are my colors. I have this set up right now as a 3-color. If I wanted to print this blue, take that blue and make it this same shade and print that blue, that medium blue directly to the garment because I have to do a color reduction on press, then I would come in here and I'd have to isolate that section again to remove it from my base white or just go back and redo my white base separations. Let's see, anything else that I can touch on in here? Let's see, let's go over the separation. So if we want to actually go ahead and hit print on this, going through our RIP program, we're going to open up our print dialog, print window. I'm going to go to AccuRip. I like to use AccuRip T3270. Media size, I'm going to say custom because I go through the 3270, which is a wider format roll printer. Size whatever I want within the roll media. If you're doing a 13 by 19 or 11 by 17, 8.5 by 11, choose that paper size for this. I'm going to go to output. I'm going to go to separations, and you can see all the active colors that I have in here. So I have my base white, I have my cream shade, my deeper blue teal, my do not print black. So you see that and you're like, turn that off, don't print it. And my lighter blue. There are no halftones in here, so this section here doesn't matter. You can set that at 1 LPI, 0 angle, it doesn't matter, but only if there's no halftone information. If you have any halftone information, it's really important to pay attention to this. I personally like to let Illustrator take over the halftone angles and the LPI because it saves that information specific to that file. If you are letting AccuRip take over on the angle and the LPI, if you need to change it for something, you need to remember to change it back, and you need to make notes somewhere about what you did for that file in case you ever have to go back and reprint a film, make an adjustment to a year on it, whatever it is. Oops, typo, I gotta redo it. If you do that in AccuRip and you don't remember to go back and change those settings, it's not gonna match. So if you do it in here, it's always gonna remember what you did for that individual file. This setting is always about that individual file that you were working on. And then of course you would hit print. I'm going to click done. So there we go. I think that covers it. Thanks for watching, screen printers. Leave your comments in the section down below. We watch those all the time and we will answer them. If you find that there were sections that I didn't cover well enough for you or anything that you have a greater question on, we will take note of that and we will make a video on that in the future. Thanks for watching, screen printers. Check us out, screenprinting.com. Check out more of our videos on Ryonet channel. Take care. Talk to you later.